preparing. May the House please come to order. Esteemed delegates, student officers, fellow members of the Secretariat, faculty, advisors, and guests. It is my absolute pleasure to welcome you to the 4th Annual ZYGMUN Model United Nations Conference. My name is ZYGMUN, and it is my pleasure to serve as the President of the General Assembly at ZYGMUN. Seated to my left is Julia Anton, this year's Secretary General, and to her left is Alex Levinsky, this year's Head of Admin. And to my right is Ian Wilder, serving as the Head of Public Relations and Technology. This year, we have the privilege to host 7 committees tackling 14 different far-reaching and impactful global issues, all interconnected with the conference's themes of the 16th UN Sustainable Development Goal: peace, justice, and strong institutions. This year, we have over 280 delegates and student officers spanning from over 35 schools and 17 countries. At this time, I would like to introduce Mr. John Zerflin, the director of the American School of Warsaw, who has been a great supporter of ZYGMUN since its inaugural session in 2018. And without him, we would not be here today. We are extremely grateful that Mr. Zerflin will deliver ZYGMUN's opening remarks. The floor is yours, Mr. Zerflin.
In both words of welcome and hopefully in words of thought relative to your goal in the coming days. I'm excited to be able to speak to you from the ASW stage, where with distancing practices in place, we have some of our students at the American School of Warsaw gathered, a testament to the challenge we undertook to remain open as a school for this entire school year in preparation for learning despite the challenges of a global pandemic. We're excited that we've been able to do that. And at the same time, we're excited to be welcoming 35 schools in 17 countries as though they were in our midst. And I can't help, as I stand on the stage of our school looking at predominantly empty seats, picturing your faces before me, eager and ready to take on the challenges of the conference that you will be engaging in. I took your mission statement, the sustainable goal from the United Nations, to heart, and really spent some considerable time in recent days considering it, both in a historical context, being someone who, while I don't like to declare my age at this point, and my history has a degree of experience that goes deeply into our past, but also in the face of our current circumstance here and around the globe, and the challenges that we face that are embedded and part of this sustainable goal. It requires us to, I think very deeply about the concepts that are embedded in some very powerful words. Let's start with peace. I remember as a child growing up in the 60s, there you go, I dated myself, always thinking about what the world would be like if we all could live in peace. Keep in mind, in the 60s, I was growing up as a very young child, very much aware that there was a war going on, very much aware that there was quite a bit of debate about whether that war should be going on, and a tremendous upswelling of belief and thought embodied in music and the arts and many aspects of life that embraced the idea that there should be a different path. That peace is what we should achieve. It's always been, because even 30 years later as a kindergarten teacher, we often talked as children about the aspiration of peace. We grow up wide-eyed and very thoughtful and optimistic about what it would be like if we could all join hands in peaceful coexistence. Here at the American School of Warsaw, we have a core value that speaks to that. The idea that if we work together and become one, we can achieve peace. But the more important part of our core value that is often overlooked is that without us all, we're nothing. We will not achieve peace if anyone is left behind. If we exclude anyone from the conversation, peace will not be attained. We've seen that played out throughout the world since the 60s. Despite our admonitions and our deep distress over war and conflict, we faced yet another conflict, one after another, inspired by planes plowing into buildings, inspired by conflict between leaders and their own people, inspired by discord over religious faith and long-held beliefs. Peace is not easy, and it will not be obtained unless everyone sits at the table. And it speaks to the reason why Model United Nations is so critical, and why I count myself as an advocate for Model United Nations and serve as an advisor to my junior committee here in the middle school, many of them are involved today. Model United Nations is the way out, because we are inspiring here the conversations that we hope one day will play out in the true United Nations. The conversations that will lead to peace and the reduction of conflict. The conversations that will inspire what we hope for. And in the context of that, we also know that we seek justice. Justice is hard. We think of justice as just doing the right thing, but my years have taught me to believe that one person's justice is not necessarily the justice of another. The core word here is just. In other words, what is right? What is moral? What is core to our beliefs? And what is it that we all hold in common, as well as what are our differences? For me, justice is hard fought. And the graphic that I'm sharing with you speaks to the challenge associated with seeking justice. It is as much a support of the balance as it is a tug of war over finding center. Justice requires effort. Uncovering truth is not easy. And that's why justice and peace are often in conflict. Reconciling justice and peace in your deliberations will be a daunting task. You will not achieve it easily. And the only way to get to it is to find those common things that we all believe as human beings, whether it be freedom, the opportunity to choose, the ability to live in a way that's consistent and equitable with others. Those inequalities will drive distrust, and how we serve each other, how we take care of each other, will better drive the conversation. that will help us to find balance. And then finally, the other part of this sustainable goal is the idea of institutions. And this is where I often reflect on how education drives this equation. While I value all of the other institutions of government and judicial and legislative and leadership, for me, the core is education. We gather together to teach, to learn, to engage, and to empower. For us, education as an educator is about sustaining the future. It is about carving that path. My playground experience in the 60s plays out on this stage and whenever I'm in front of the students that I teach. That aspiration, that childhood quality of seeking peace, that's what I want to instill in my students and as seeds planted for a more prosperous future. I have to say to you, delegates, that while I appreciate your arguments today and tomorrow and in the days ahead, I want to plant the seed here that the most important part of MUN is what you take away, is what you instill in your minds and in your hearts for the future. MUN is a training ground. It is challenging, and it should be. But I want you to use this experience to inspire the future. Find your path from here in the years ahead to craft a path towards making yourself a participant in change. If the pandemic has taught us nothing else, it is that the paradigms of the past are very hard to change. In the midst of a global pandemic, we are still facing the same acrimony and challenge and divisions that the world has faced forever. And I think what we should find as a silver lining in our experience is that a new paradigm is necessary. That's my challenge to you, both in your debates in the coming days and in your life. Please seek peace and justice and become part of the institutions that will drive us into a future we can all be proud of. I thank you for your attention. I thank you for your possibility. Go forth, enjoy your conference, and I wish you all well for what we can achieve together. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Zerfu, for your inspiring opening remarks. The contributions and advocacy of our conference have not gone unnoticed. I, on behalf of the Secretariat, would also like to sincerely thank Andrea Robertson and the MUN World Team who have helped us elevate the technological aspect of our conference. I now invite the Head of Public Relations and Technology to the floor to discuss how the COVID-19 pandemic has influenced ZYGMUN.
Thank you, Madam President. Honorable delegates, student officers, fellow secretariat members, faculty advisors, and guests. It is my utmost pleasure to again welcome you all to the 4th Annual ZYGMUN Conference. My name is Ian Wilder, and it is my sincere honor to have the opportunity to serve the Secretariat for the 2nd year in a row, this year serving as Head of Public Affairs and Technology. For a second, I would like to go and take a moment back in time, just under a year ago, to the 3rd Annual ZYGMUN Conference. Many of you who participated last year are aware of the great challenges that were posed to our conference just a month before its planned start when the COVID pandemic hit. Very rapidly, our planned in-person regular conference became impossible, and the Secretariat was faced with a decision. We had to choose between canceling our conference or trying out this new digital Zoom-based idea of a conference, which was new to us all, Secretariat, student officers, delegates alike. It didn't take us very long to decide that we weren't about to let all the hard work of the delegates go to waste, and therefore we decided to continue the conference. We worked day and night to be able to facilitate the conference in this new unknown setting. The results were more incredible than our wildest expectations. Going through committees last year was an incredible experience. The debate was still wild and unpredictable. The delegate-to-delegate dynamics were clear and evident. And most importantly, the connections and enjoyments that are fostered by MUN were still there at a time when everyone really needed them. On top of that, the turnout to our conference last year truly warmed my heart. We were one of the many conferences, but one of the first to proceed directly to a virtual model. And I'm sure, as many people who attended the 3rd ZYGMUN conference can agree, it was an overwhelming success. However, from the moment that the 3rd ZYGMUN conference ended, we immediately set out to improve upon our virtual model so that this year's conference could truly capture the essence of a true MUN experience. From new rules of procedure to a carefully planned out digital platform to meet all of ZYGMUN's needs, we have done everything to tailor this conference into the same essence that you would all experience here in Warsaw, attending an in-person conference. All these reflections bring me back to the important idea behind all of your attendance at this year's conference: perseverance. All of us have faced numerous challenges posed by this new reality since March of last year, and it hasn't always been easy. However, all of you chose to participate in this conference and are continuing to chase your passions, your dreams, your hobbies, and your favorite activities, despite the challenges that have been presented to you. And that speaks volumes about all your characters and personalities. This year, here at ZYGMUN, we are continuing our pledge to remain a carbon neutral event. We have mitigated our carbon footprint for every conference since 2019 through the purchase of carbon offsets, and we are continuing to do so this year. Although our conference may be a model United Nations conference, we strive to meet and exceed the standards set by the Sustainable Development Goals, as well as the United Nations as a body. From Sustainable Goal 13, climate action, to the rest, we here at ZYGMUN remain steadfast in our commitment to the Sustainable Development Goals, which is one of the many reasons why we have chosen our conference themes for the next 10 years to be aligned with Secretary General Gutierrez's call for a decade of action. Sustainable Development Goals are of particular importance to me personally as Head of Public Affairs. Goals 5 and 6, with Goal 16 being the theme of this conference, are particularly relevant to my role in this conference. These goals call for gender equality and peace, justice, and strong institutions, respectively. I have always made it my goal and mission here at ZYGMUN to ensure that this conference is carried out in a way that all delegates feel safe, secure, and respected, particularly in this digital format, which doesn't always encourage decorum. Therefore, I would like to remind everyone of a few things that will help keep ZYGMUN safe and welcoming to everyone. In debate, on top of avoiding personal pronouns, it's good practice to avoid the use of gender pronouns. A good example of this is instead of stating, could the delegate state her point, being sure to use could the delegate state their point. On top of that, if you have preferred pronouns you'd like to use in direct communications with the secretariat or your student officers, do not hesitate to include them on your ZYGMUN platform profile page. Or if you'd rather communicate them directly to your chairs or secretariat, feel free to do so as well. It has always been a top priority here at ZYGMUN to maintain these standards of equality and safety. And we plan to maintain these same standards for this conference as well. Therefore, if you have any other questions or points, please do not hesitate to contact me directly. The list of people to thank for helping enable this conference from my side of things as head of technology is nearly endless. There has been an incredible team of supporting students, staff, and faculty here at the American School of Warsaw who helped support the entire secretariat. From setting up internet connections to live streaming this ceremony, there's one person behind all of it and each step of it, and for that, we thank you. It also has to be mentioned that there's a crucial team of people behind the ZYGMUN platform, which you have no doubt already seen and used. Their incredible support and work on this conference have really enabled us to transform ZYGMUN virtually from a website and Zoom calls into an immersive, incredible conference experience. And for their knowledge and support, we are eternally grateful to the team of people over at MUN World. I'd like to end this speech on a more personal note. I have attended over 15 MUN conferences in my high school years, but this one is particularly special to me. I have seen ZYGMUN grow from its founding back in 2018 into what it is today, with over 280 delegates and students officers from 17 nations across the globe. My gratitude for your support of ZYGMUN cannot be put into words, and I wish I had the opportunity to meet some of you or all of you in person. However, my journey with ZYGMUN ends with this conference. This is my fourth and final ZYGMUN conference, and it's hard to believe, but I'll be graduating from high school in just over a month and be leaving ZYGMUN in all your capable hands. As a matter of fact, ZYGMUN overlaps with my last few days of school, so it's an emotional time for us all. Either way, I hope this conference will mean to you as much as it means to me. I hope that you will find that little special split space in your heart that ZYGMUN will lie, and that you will carry with you for the rest of your life. The lessons you draw from this conference, I can tell you from my personal experience, will exceed anything you could ever read out of any book. Seeing all of you from such different backgrounds participate in this conference gives me tremendous hope for our future in this world. I hope to get to meet all of you in the future, if the future Secretariat members and students officers who are amongst you now choose to have me on ZYGMUN as a guest speaker. If this is your last high school MUN conference, as it is mine, take these lessons from the conference and apply them to whatever good you will do for this world. And if you are lucky enough to have more of high school left ahead of you, carry these lessons with you onto the next ZYGMUN, and we can't wait to meet you someday here in Warsaw. Thank you, and enjoy the conference.
Thank you, Mr. Head of Public Affairs and Technology, for your insightful words in regards to our virtual setting and transition. Now, I would like to give the floor to Madam Secretary General to speak on this year's ZYGMUN theme, Peace, Justice, and Strong Institutions.
Honorable delegates, chairs, guests, and fellow secretariat. My name is Julia Anting, and this year I have the honor of serving as ZYGMUN's Secretary General. It is my pleasure to welcome you all to this year's conference. This year, we are welcoming 280 delegates from 35 schools in 17 countries to discuss a variety of topics that fall under our theme, peace, justice, and strong institutions. These past 12 months, it seems that especially institutional injustices and the dangers these pose to democracy and equality have been central to political discourse worldwide. We have seen the overthrow of democratic institutions in Myanmar and the horrific murder of their citizens. Anti-Asian hate crimes, often perpetuated by misinformation and government rhetoric, have been on the rise. Beyond such blatant showcases of violence, we have also seen a string of injustices, especially in quote-unquote democratic nations. The recent additions to France's headscarf ban are a blatant attack on inclusivity, and Poland's continued restriction of reproductive rights and attacks on free media stand perpendicular to ideas of justice and democracy. In the United States, police brutality is an issue that has gained worldwide media attention, especially since the tragic murder of George Floyd last year. Still, we have seen limited strides towards tangible change. The reason I mention these events specifically is that I have noticed a strong association between the perceived strength of an institution and its ability to protect citizens from outside forces. This, I believe, is a gross misconception, especially in today's day and age, with interstate wars at a historical low. It is just as important to look inwards and at institutions themselves. An institution or government that perpetuates intolerance and marginalization is not a strong one, and definitely isn't one that promotes peaceful and inclusive society. The idea of peace itself is perhaps also one that requires definition. As Patrick Cullors, the Chief of Profession in Governance and Peace Building at the United Nations puts it, a peaceful society is one where people can live free from fear, free from violence, free from intimidation, and free from arbitrary action. An outwardly democratic nation is not necessarily a peaceful one. In fact, when we shift our definition of peace to encompass freedom from fear and intimidation, I would argue that no nation is truly 100% peaceful. Now, this claim is not meant to sound cynical as much as it should remind us that our work is never done. I recently participated in a debate in which the prompt centered around mandatory voting. Now, I'm almost ashamed to say that until then, I was nearly oblivious to the extreme systemic disenfranchisement that exists in so-called democratic nations. All over the globe, we face systemic turnout inequality linked to socioeconomic status. A Canadian study conducted by members of the University of Toronto, as well as McGill University, examined the link between socioeconomic status and non-voting internationally. They studied countries including Ukraine, Russia, Spain, Romania, Poland, Norway, the United States, Israel, Japan, Hungary, and Germany, and found that in all of these countries, socioeconomic status affected non-voting. Furthermore, during the 2010 general election in the United Kingdom, there was a 23 percentage point gap between the turnout for the poorest and richest income groups. Disenfranchisement was also a major point of discussion during the 2020 US election, with Trump's war on the Postal Service and the disproportionately long waiting lines for Black voters being two examples of intended disenfranchisement. Free and fair elections are paramount to justice, equality, and democracy, and addressing institutional disenfranchisement is necessary to achieving this. Still, Such almost normalized injustices are often forgotten in the general discussion about achieving world peace. Before we can take any steps to address any issue in the world, we must first admit to its existence, which often requires many of us, including myself, to confront our own privilege and perhaps ignorance. Now, this isn't an easy task by any means, but it is one that you are all taking on this weekend. Over the coming days, you will each debate various topics in your committees. You will be faced with issues ranging from active violent conflict to modern warfare in the form of cybercrime. And in the process, you'll be confronting all manner of injustices and dangers to peace. However, I hope that your work doesn't end after ZYGMUN. Once you have spent the weekend discussing worldwide injustices, I urge you to turn the lens inward at your own community, to use this conference as a chance to reflect and perhaps discuss with other delegates ways that you independently can contribute to peaceful and inclusive societies beyond the confines of this conference. Perhaps that will mean addressing and acknowledging internalized injustices and holding your own institutions accountable for their actions. Now, it has undoubtedly been an eventful year since our last ZYGMUN conference. The pandemic has entered another wave in many countries, and we have all been moved, hurt, and affected by the many instances of injustice and tragedy over the past year. Still, the year has also seen an overwhelming amount of global engagement with these issues. And today, 280 of you have made the choice to confront these issues head on and talk about the issues currently facing our world. And by doing that, you have taken a significant step towards fighting for a global community marked by peace, justice, and strong institutions. To quote what my fellow Secretariat member said in his speech, all of you give me confidence in the future of our world because of your actions today and hopefully your actions that will follow. On behalf of the Secretariat, we could not be more proud to welcome you virtually this year to the 4th annual ZYGMUN Model United Nations Conference. I have confidence that the next 3 days will be filled with productive debate, new friendships, and personal reflection. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Secretary General. Your thoughtful perspective is truly moving and of extreme value. I would now like to introduce Donovan Miller, a talented ASW student who has recorded a short musical performance for the ceremony. We would like to apologize for any technical issues we are experiencing. However, we would like to move on in the opening ceremony. We would like to take a moment to acknowledge all of the artists who have contributed to this year's ZYGMUN conference. Thank you, James Kim and Jonathan Miller, for your beautiful musical performances. And thank you, Molly Sheehan, for your artistic interpretation of this year's conference theme, Peace, Justice, and Strong Institutions. Please see the Instagram handle in the left corner, top left corner, to see more of her amazing work. At this point in the opening ceremony, I would like to dismiss the student officers to set up the committee's Zoom meetings. I repeat, student officers, you are dismissed to set up your Zoom meeting. Thank you. ZYGMUN runs across 3 days, each with a unique schedule. The schedule can be accessed via the ZYGMUN platform by clicking on the second banner to the left entitled Schedule. The blue banner separates each day on the schedule, and you can refer back to this with any questions surrounding timing or starting times for committee, bearing in mind that breaks and lunch will be at the ultimate discretion of your chairs. Please note that the times are divided into 5 columns, representing the different participating time zones of ZYGMUN. Remember to check times using the appropriate column for your location, the titles of which are all listed at the top of the schedule. For example, our first committee sessions will begin at 9:15 here in Warsaw, but 10:15 in Minsk. Remember, the schedule is readily accessible via the Schedule tab on the ZYGMUN platform. This is also where the rules of procedure can be found on the platform. Please click ROP for details on the code of conduct and rules of procedure. Now I will demonstrate how delegates can access the committee's Zoom meetings. Please click My Forum at the top of the platform and then click Join Meeting. This is located on the right side of the screen. I repeat, click My Forum, then Join Meeting. And with that, it is my absolute honor and pleasure to officially declare the 4th session of ZYGMUN Model United Nations open. You are dismissed. The first committee sessions start at 9:15 Central European Time.